My name's Dwayne Natwick. I am Senior Product Manager for Application Infrastructure and Data Migrations at Cloudreach. And as Ron said, we were purchased by Atos and that was closed just after the first of the year as the new year turned. And we're really excited to be a part of Atos because we bring a particular knowledge and capability around the cloud hyperscalers into the organization. And just to give everybody a little bit idea, we are a cloud native solution provider. So we work with AWS, Azure, GCP, and have a global reach. We are outcome driven. We have, we work with our customers as trusted advisors for what they need, and have unique software and intellectual property that we use to meet customer needs and focus on the outcomes that a company requires. Enough with the Cloudreach commercial. Let's get into the actual information. So Andy alluded to this a little bit in the ETL process, the extract, transform, and load process that was kind of the legacy use of data really before pre-cloud hyperscalers, and where this was a very arduous approach where everything was extracted from the data sources. We staged that information, we put it into a data warehouse, and then analyze that data. This middle section here now has really become evolved. It's evolved really to that extract, load, and transform that Andy was talking to with Fivetran, from a standpoint of, okay, we have all of this data, and we want to work on this data, and we want to analyze this data in real time. And so that is what we're utilizing now in the middle here. We're still using some of the same tools like Kafka, Apache, data warehousing, software in the cloud, Microsoft, for example, data analytics, and we now are batching and streaming that data. And as we are doing that, we're transforming that data to what we need to dashboards to analyze that data. And we're utilizing that, such as, an example would be Power BI, and putting these rich dashboards that is giving us real-time data and really refining that data on demand as it comes in from the various connected devices we have in there, which are, within an organization probably now are thousands of devices that are connected to the internet, and that we need to use that data. All those data sources where coming in from, our Facebook pages and social media, and our Salesforce and Workday sources for what people, how people are accessing our inventory and purchasing our goods. We want to see this right away, and this is what's going to impact our business and how we create our business, how we manage our supply chain, which I know everybody, we keep hearing on a day-to-day basis what has happened with the global pandemic and our supply chain. So being able to work with our data and understand our needs for our supply chain are of the utmost importance, because the more agile and the more streamlined we can be in our ordering process to meet the needs and the demand that we have on our products is going to obviously have a big impact on our bottom line. And so we have all of these pipelines, and we have the data catalogs we have, and we really need to focus on how we are managing and manipulating our data and governing over our data, and to look at, Andy had that wheel of data governance. We have more of an X and Y axis here of data governance, but data governance is huge, and the importance here of governing over our data and how we're using our data and what we're doing in terms of our life cycle and our identity, and managing over our who has access to that data and who doesn't have access to that data, and masking certain data that should not be visible to those that aren't authorized, become pieces in here, and how we're properly filtering the data for who we need to see that data and who needs to review that data. Network security, compliance, identity, security, all kind of fall into a similar bucket when we're talking about governance, but making sure that we're properly encrypting that data. Most of the hyperscalers encrypt data at rest by default, and make sure that everything, most websites and information that's traversing the internet anymore is using an HTTPS rather than HTTP transmission circuit to encrypt that data, so that it's not in plain text and can't be intercepted, so that we don't have a reputational issue of PII being visible to people that aren't authorized, and being able then also to segment our data and segment our networks of what's public and what's private within our environment, and then properly managing our infrastructure and making sure that we have our data properly tagged. Again, that goes along with classification, as well as just where those resources go and who owns that data for custodianship. And then monitoring, alerting, and logging, having that activity all logged, all goes around and into this whole continuous compliance and continuous governance approach. And so 3 keys here in terms of enabling your data-driven decisions are, where are we storing that data, how we're cataloging that data, and then how are we analyzing that data. And we need to take all of those things into account and think about those all when we are making our decisions on what is going to how we're going to utilize our data. It's and you can think of these in some other ways of know your data, protect your data, govern your data. Those are all key things that we need to understand. And if we don't know our data, we really can't move on and understand where our data is stored, where it's located. We really can't get to step 2, and that's really what we need to make sure we are going through this in an iterative type of process, where we are making sure that we know where our data is stored, and then we can catalog it. We can work and transform that data, and we can then really analyze that data for our needs and provide descriptive and predictive analytics across all of our data. Some things around costs, and when we're thinking about our infrastructure, obviously a key piece of the infrastructure is cost, and how do we manage costs? And one of the things that we help to do at Cloudreach is help you to govern over the cost piece, as well as all of those security aspects and compliance aspects that you need, and being very prescriptive and monitoring the governance of cost becomes very important, because obviously as we start to connect more resources and connect more infrastructure into what we're going to analyze with data, we're now ingesting loads of data, and that's why big data is such a big business right now, and why we're having a whole conversation around data and analytics and AI and ML, because there is data being ingested everywhere. Think about even just 10 years ago, the amount of connected devices you may have had in your house versus how many we have now, and then just expand that by probably by 500%, 1,000% for a enterprise business or a company that now has all of these feeds and all of this information that is out there, that is business focused to that organization, that now needs to take place. So we have all this data coming in, and now we need to make sure that we're building those those pipelines and making sure that it's built and we're running it on demand as needed, and we are making sure that there is a total cost of ownership to that. So if we're just ingesting data and we're not really using it and analyzing it properly for analysis and proper life cycle of that data, we're really just essentially throwing money out the window. So we need to build those analytical tools so that we can use that data properly and utilize it across our data landscape for multiple reasons and multiple means. I mentioned supply chain, but we also have sales forecasting. We have personnel forecasting. Even, if we're watching revenues rise, we might need to find new personnel in different areas, and we can utilize that data and find where we need the personnel and what we need to do to expand our business. And that's how we can really create a return on our investment to all this data that we're ingesting and what we're utilizing in terms of manning these pipelines. Why do we need data governance? I hit over this a little bit when I was on the data governance slide, but really, we need to break down and make sure if we're using data for multiple means and we're using the same data for multiple reasons, we need to govern properly over that data so that, because something for information that's in our supply chain may not be something that is information that fully needs to, that every column and row doesn't necessarily need to be seen by sales, or it doesn't need to be seen by human resources as we're looking through, what we need inventory wise versus revenue generation wise versus personnel wise. So we need to make sure that we're governing over that estate properly. We're making sure we have things classified and secured properly with data masking where it's not necessary, and create that lineage and establishing and also understanding and handling that the data that's being presented to each group is accurate and we have confidence in it. Last piece I think here is why we keep raw data and what is done with the raw data. And key thing here is we're taking that data in, and in the ELT process rather than the ETL process is we are working with that raw data immediately, and we're doing some level of loading to that and transforming that in those various dashboards. We don't want to do anything necessarily to change that raw data, because as I stated, there might be that raw data may be used by multiple departments, multiple groups. So we want to make sure that we're providing some level of replication and backup and archiving data that we need to possibly use at a later time for other means and other analytical uses. So that data should be governed over in its own right within your infrastructure. And there are very cost-effective ways to create retention policies and retain that data into archival data stores that cost a fraction of a hot data store, and within all of the hyperscalers, you can build a data lifecycle that you can then manage. Again, that's governing over that data, maintaining its use, but we're also governing over cost. We're governing over its security, because we're storing that encrypted, and we are properly then also governing over it from a compliance standpoint as well, because certain data you need to keep for a certain amount of time also. And just finally, a couple of use cases here around data and how big data might be used. Financial and departments of transportation type of uses here. Where we have a financial tech company that has massive amounts of data, and is using, Azure Data Lake as a backbone for data initiatives. We also have the State Department of Transportation, where, if you think about now, Department of Transportation, every street corner in the United States has a camera on it. That camera is taking images, it is taking raw data, and it's sending it back to somewhere. We obviously have to work with that, and we have to understand, somebody ran a red light, what was their driver's, their license plate number, and we need to take and then send them a ticket, right? So that's all ways to utilize data and to replicate that data for essentially a revenue stream. So these are a couple use cases that Cloudreach has helped customers build that data infrastructure to utilize for different various different means. And here's just real quick commercial here of Cloudreach and our rapid migration for analytics. We have rapid data migration across any of the hyperscalers to help build that infrastructure and enable organizations to get past that barrier that you might have within your own data infrastructure, or maybe even just trying to break through into a public cloud data analytics platform. We can help build those data lakes, those data warehousing type environments for you, and provide the expertise that we have done this for other customers, and really provide you with the knowledge and the knowledge transfer to help get you where you need to go.